Hi guys, Matt the Editor here, and welcome to another edition of Doctor Who Series 12 Who Editor Reviews. This week, it's The Haunting of Villa Diodati. Now, I remember when this story was announced, and thinking, oh, this might be interesting, a historical story which discusses possibly the origins of the story Frankenstein. And there were so many speculations that this episode would have a Cyberman appear in it. But seeing as how the Cybermen were going to play a part in this series finale, I didn't hold that theory to heart when this episode was being hyped. Not even the trailers got me convinced. But then I remembered a sketch from Horrible Histories. It features Mary Shelley and Lord Byron coming up with the idea of vampire and Frankenstein on the same night during a scary storytelling competition at Lord Byron's house. When that came into mind, I thought, oh, this could be an interesting idea. Seeing the authors of two popular literature icons come together to tell ghost stories. Honestly, this could have just been the actual story, seeing these characters tell stories, and I would be happy. And for the most part, yeah, we kinda got that. I like how they seem to bring in less known actors to play these characters, with an exception of Maxim Baldry, who was last seen in the Russell T Davies show years and years. Well, I know him well as the boy from Mr. Bean's Holiday, but all the others sound like not well-known actors. In honesty, any scene with those characters is quite possibly the most entertaining part of the episode. Every single one of them was done really well. Each one had a good character. Lord Byron really stood out the most for me as someone who is kind of a popular scoundrel, a pop star of the time period who does have a kind of intimidating mind when it comes to poetry or ghost stories. It was kind of weird how he seemed to be attracted to the Doctor, but it didn't really bother me as much. It did lead to some funny moments between him, the TARDIS team, and I think his female friend. I forgot what her name was. Mary Shelley, I really liked from the start, expressing her interest in telling stories, particularly when she was given that horror vibe towards her friends in the first half of the episode. That sort of intimidating, sort of slow-paced talk, just to get the mood and atmosphere right. But I did also like how she's also a caring mother and husband, and it did lead to a sweet moment between her and, well, the main threat. The other two I don't remember as much, aside from Maxim Baldry as whatever his name was, the zombie goth kid. And Claire, I only remember her talk with Yaz and her being kind of jealous towards the Doctor being interested by Lord Byron. But I did like how each of the characters stood out from each other. I looked at the behind the scenes video after watching this episode. It's very clear that Maxine Alderton has done her research on these characters using their diaries. There were some nitpicks whilst I was watching this episode, but the performances were fine, and seeing the amount of effort was being put into the research between Byron and Shelley, I can overlook those problems. The Doctor herself, wow, I feel like we're definitely going somewhere. I was a little iffy about her scenes with the mystery elements, but honestly for the first half, I did like the Doctor having fun by joining in with the dancing, trying to encourage the characters to tell each other stories, and even when the threat does come into place, she does seem to try very hard to figure it out. Even the scenes between her and the villain, I kind of see an element of possible fear behind the quirky facade. And because of a certain warning she received earlier in the season, she does seem to worry about the events that happened to her and her mates. But even she knows what she has to do to save both the team and the Shelleys, because even though it could lead to a possible apocalypse in the future, it is still the right thing to do. And Jodie does sell that angry or frustrated Doctor so well. I felt like we had not seen that Doctor in a long while. We got a slight element of fright when she discovered the Dalek in Resolution, but it didn't look like she reached the usual anger mixed with fright when we saw with the previous incarnations every time they come encounter with the Daleks. Here, it is clearly seen when she mentions how this threat has made a massive, massive point in her previous incarnation, which was a nice touch of continuity, by the way. But we see the frustration of how all her hard work doesn't always lead to a good resolution in that dramatic climax. It's a scene where the team are faced with a moral question. Should they allow Percy Shelley, who has been infected with a powerful artificial intelligence, to die so that billions in the future might live? Even Ryan, with that possibly out of character line, suggests that the right thing to do is to just let him die. But then the Doctor gives that speech at how Shelley's death and the resultant absence of his literature works could have a huge impact on future history. And I quote, "History will change in a blink. The future will not be the world you know. The world you came from, the world you were created in, won't exist, so neither will you." I did kind of think they would still not exist if they let this threat get away with it, but when I look back to previous stories that I think did this kind of thing, I did think to myself, no, this could still happen. I did think the line, "Words matter, your words have power," I did think it was a little odd due to recent news, but I did also think that this could rely on how Shelley's discoveries of those words is influenced by Mary Shelley to make the book of Frankenstein, or inspire Byron's poetry, She Is the Universe, which, yeah, even Chibnall himself said they had to include that line in the end of the episode. But also how the words could make a person feel happy and hurt at the same time. The TARDIS team I don't really remember doing a lot, aside from a few small moments like Yaz is confessing her relationship interests, which I think is confirmed in the Dr. Yasmin ship, Ryan playing the piano badly with Mary Shelley, and Graham seeing literal ghosts. Honestly, I don't think needed to be included in the story, unless it is explained more in the next episode. But all they do is just remind the Doctor about not making a biggest mistake, and the ending where they again say that they are standing by her all the way, which I feel like they've done so many times this series, it's kind of getting a little repetitive. But the performances are still fine, and they do have a few good moments. I did think this was going to be a standard ghost story, and for the most part, it's actually okay. The idea of the haunted house having a sort of dream-like perception filter is kind of interesting. I like the scenes where the characters try to leave the rooms that they're trapped in, but they end up back in the same room, which do lead to some good cinematography tricks. However, there were moments in which I can tell where they've cut the first take and then edited the other take. But the one with the Doctor leaving and entering the room with Lord Byron, I thought was really lazy. They could have just had the Doctor leave from the left end and then arrive back in the opposite end. But no, they just had to keep coming back from the same doorway or the same direction. It just kind of looked like they came back to the room on purpose because they'd forgotten something. Just, come on, you could have done something better than that. Plus, I do feel like we've seen this done before in previous Doctor Who stories with the same idea. Like that comic relief sketch, Time and Space. Is that what it's called? You know, with the one where there was like a TARDIS stuck inside the TARDIS. And the dreamlike premise from Stephen Moffat's Last Christmas. But I will admit, when we find out how they are seeing these visions of ghosts, or at least why they keep going to the same room, is actually kind of clever. But throughout the entire story, I didn't really think was that great or fun, until this one big thing happens, but it does include a massive spoiler. So even if you haven't seen it, please pause this review and go and watch it yourself. I can wait. You good? Good. Excellent. Now, let's get into spoilers. Well, honestly, it's not really a spoiler because it was already kind of hinted at or theorized or even told through the press or advertisement, but unless you've been sleeping under a rug for a while, you know that the Cybermen have returned. Honestly, throughout, I didn't really think we were going to get a Cyberman story, seeing as how the Cybermen were already going to be a key element in the finale, and the way this episode was advertised did not seem to be giving us that idea. It's not a bad idea having the author of Frankenstein who dreamt of the idea possibly see this actually happen in front of her to inspire the story. But man, I was even more surprised when they actually did it. But honestly, yeah, this really wasn't a surprise because we knew about the Cybermen returning for a long while. From the trailers, Jack's warning, the BBC America trailer, and social media, we kind of knew this was going to happen. But in all honesty, once the Cybermen came into this episode, things really got better, and wow, this is quite possibly the creepiest Cyberman I have ever seen. Even though it is the Siberian Cyberman suit, I do like how it seems to talk and move more like the classic era Cyberman, half machine and half human. Even the voice, which not done by Nicholas Briggs, brought an element of David Banks back to the show. The human hand, the human movement. I even liked the two-faced Cyberman head. Again, a good reminder that they are actually humanity Mark II. They are not robots. It was genuinely the best I had seen of the Cybermen in a while. While I did like seeing the Mondasian Cybermen in World Enough in Time, I did think they were kind of overshadowed by the two Masters and Peter Capaldi's regeneration story. But this is interesting. There were two moments that really stood out for me from this Cyberman. One is the scene where the Cyberman is confronting the Doctor and Mary Shelley. Shelley gives this little speech to ask the actual person inside the cybersuit who he once was. And for a moment, I thought it worked. She holds out her hand, he slowly takes it, but then he goes back to his threatening ways. Oh! That was a genuine Cyberman moment. Another moment that really struck me was just a shot. The shot of the Cyberman standing in a dark doorway. There is very little light aside from a blue light shining on the edge of the Cyberman, and as the baby is crying off screen, he just stands there and slowly turns his head. I was literally frightened to my feet, wondering what was he going to do next. If an episode can do two creepy moments right with an overdone villain, it's doing something right. Now, there is a slight controversy in terms of continuity or the show's official canon in this episode. Personally, I found the continuity in some scenes to be a little bit of an issue, like when the Doctor tells the team not to mess with history or even mention the literature works of Frankenstein, and literally one scene later, she does exactly that. They do make fun of it afterwards, but it still felt odd to me. Also, I do think there are some scenes with the supporting cast or the episode's runtime in which I didn't think made sense, like the baby being taken by the Cybermen, and then straight after that scene, we see him again, but he doesn't have the baby. Was there a scene missing, or was that supposed to be a different order? But I don't know. But another is how the Doctor knew where to go to find Shelley captured. And what was the deal with the skeleton hands? I mean, don't get me wrong, it was so cool to look at, but when we actually look back on how all of this is happening, where exactly does the walking skeleton hand fall into place? And why did it jump out of a painting? Also, when it comes to historical accuracies, I'm pretty sure there are some elements of the backstory of this event between the actual event, which I'm pretty sure the BBC would not allow. But aside from the possible hint of an orgy when the supporting cast were caught in the doorway by the Doctor and the team, I'm pretty sure there are some non-accurate elements of the characters or time periods which may or may not fit well the story, but those are just minor nitpicks. But the biggest problem in terms of continuity a lot of fans have been talking about is where this episode takes place in line with the Big Finish story, The Silver Turk. Especially since the night of the Doctor confirmed those 8 Doctor stories on Big Finish are officially canon. Now, I've not listened to that Big Finish story. I haven't listened to a lot of Big Finish stories. I've listened to a few, but I haven't listened to a lot of them, mainly. But personally, I didn't think it bothered me as much as other fans. Mostly because, seeing as how this series is possibly going to lead to a possible history change or a possible alternate timeline or something with the timeless children, why should that even matter here? Also, the Doctor does give a good speech, which is basically the theory of stepping on a butterfly in the past and the ripples of history will change the future. So, who's to say the 8th Doctor didn't pop up before or after the events of this story? Maybe Shelley or the Doctor are just keeping quiet about their past acquaintances so as not to disrupt history any further. Or maybe the Whittaker Doctor used her mind wipe from Spyfall Part 2 again to erase their memories. Yeah, remember that, Chibnall? So, it doesn't really bother me as much. So in conclusion, honestly, as a Mary Shelley story, I think this episode is okay. It's fine. But once the Cybermen enters the story, it actually gets going. it actually kind of reminded me of the past Doctor Who stories I've always enjoyed, where all you need is a good setting, a good premise, and a good villain, and just have fun with it. And yeah, again, having the author of Frankenstein coming across a Cyberman to inspire the origins of the story is a good idea. This is probably a Cyberman story I didn't think I wanted to see. The story setup I thought was nicely done. The characters for the most part were fun. Jodie's performance is really put to the test and it succeeds. And yeah, the reveal of the Cyberman onwards was creepily awesome to sit through. However, I do find this episode having a few minor plot holes with the episode's continuity or the show's canon, which may or may not be revealed in the next couple of episodes. And speaking of which, I like how this two-part finale seems to look. It looks like there are these cyber drones, which I just found out are just cyber heads flying across the screen. I guess Handel's had an upgrade. I'm guessing we get the backstory of the Cyberman Ashard we've had before he was upgraded, and I'm guessing this could lead to a shocking or depressing outcome for the Doctor or the team. Literally, from the first shot of the drones flying across the screen, I was instantly sold. I am genuinely excited, way more than I was with the previous series. Please, Chibnall, this is in your hands. Do not mess this up, or at least be careful with what you're giving us. So therefore, I'm giving this episode 8 out of 10. Be sure to leave a comment, like and share this video, and if you have seen the episode, what did you think about it? And if you'd like to see more of my videos, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to click on the bell to be notified when a new video is up. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.